So let's talk about The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, a 1925 novel set in the Jazz Age of, the American dream, the Prohibition, jazz, the rise of radio, first popular culture, the kind of changing mores of those young people and how they're just not what they used to be. Flappers, women suffragettes, all that sort of stuff. I decided to reread the Great Gatsby because it's out of copyright this year. It came out of copyright, and I had not read it in a while, and I really enjoyed it the first time. I didn't read it for a class. I just sort of read it for myself. Kind of blessed with that. This is one of these books that has been probably assigned to so many students in so many classrooms, and who read it unwillingly and grudgingly. I noticed on Goodreads, I think there's 3.9 million ratings of this book, which is not bad. It's not, I think, Twilight is 5.1 and beats Game of Thrones at 2 million, something, and some change, the first Game of Thrones book. But has a fairly low rating at 3.93. And, I think some of that is people who just, for whatever reason, don't enjoy it. But I also think there's a lot of people who were enforced to read this book at a certain time and taken through it, and kind of talking points by teachers. And let's break it to any students out there right now who are hoping to try and, fill a paper before morning when it's due. You're looking at the wrong video for that, for any help that way. This is just me kind of chatting about my reread of The Great Gatsby. So yeah, this is all about, Nick Carraway's fascination with the man of mystery, this mysterious, disreputable millionaire, Jay Gatsby, who he comes to move in beside on Long Island. And, there's all these stories about him, he was a German spy. He was he killed a man, all these different kind of various stories that go on about him. Mysterious past. Was he an Oxford man? People scoff at this. Maybe not. And, centering around all this is, Gatsby's, obsession with a former love, Daisy Buchanan, now Miss Buchanan, and how she's sort of come to kind of represent kind of a dream of a kind of a bright, glittering bauble of life, the American dream. This is, and I'm speaking as a Canadian, but the American dream, it's sort of, because of the success of America, has probably spread out this idea of what is success. Success being riches, of a beautiful woman, of just, accumulation, kind of the whole kind of capitalist deal, and this being Nick's kind of retrospective look back at this, on this guy that he says he mostly kind of disapproved of, from beginning to end, but also said, well, you're the best of the lot of them, when he was talking about all the party goers and all the people who soon desert him when things go terribly, terribly wrong. It was, this book was not a success when Fitzgerald released it. And I was listening to In Our Times, a BBC radio show and podcast, which is how I got it. And they were talking about how, this is Fitzgerald, who had early success. It was an early popular success with a lot of short stories and stuff like that, but that he wanted to write the great novel. He wanted to really push himself, push all his literary talents to the maximum, not just simply writing stuff for success, for money and stuff like that. But that they kind of drew the parallel that it would be like if some novelist today, or some great artist today, used as his subject matter these of like an influencer of like, Kim Kardashian, the Kardashians, or whoever the the most kind of up-to-date influencers, who I have no idea who they are because I'm an out-of-touch old man. Or and them, and maybe mixed with like cryptocurrency swindlers or something like that. If they'd use that as their subject matter, and people just kind of saw this as like, you're using all these beautiful, shallow, criminal people, hollow people, and you're putting this forward as great literature, of like, of course not. This is just must be trash, mistaking the subject matter for the literature. And also just using, it's a love triangle story. It's a love triangle, which, even today, especially in YA, that is dismissed as the kind of the most tired trope. And even back at the time, it's just like, oh, it's a love triangle. It's illicit. It's an illicit love. It's like, how trite all this is, but it is how Fitzgerald uses this story, uses it to kind of pull back kind of on reflecting on the society. It's kind of ironic that Fitzgerald is seen as the kind of representative of the kind of the flashy jazz age, like, oh, romanticizing all the bootleggers and the women in the flappers and kind of gaudy parties. I haven't seen the Baz Luhrmann version of this, but the trailers for it show it's Gatsby at a party, and it's Leo holding up that champagne thing and looking devilishly handsome, and like, wow, wouldn't you want to be at this party and just party hard? Is like awesome. The party will never end, kind of thing. But ironically enough, if reading the Great Gatsby now, it's like, no, you can see why the Great Gatsby wasn't a success at the time, because the Great Gatsby is a condemnation, is a criticism of that kind of really hollow, flashy, empty life. It's funny how we do get depictions of parties, but you also get so many depictions of the after effects of parties. The people, kind of the half drunk people, kind of dragging themselves away, getting in car crashes, fighting. That all the people at these parties are, kind of quasi-famous people, B-listers or C-listers, really. And it's like, it show the kind of patheticness of a party, or just kind of that point where it's like, yep, there's been a great party, but now it's like 2 or 3 in the morning, and people are just kind of like half drunk. They barfed in the bathroom, or they barfed in some room, one empty room somewhere. But it's like, yeah, this is not, oh boy, great, the jazz age. This is like, this is what all these people are wasting themselves on. Other things that struck me in this time through is like Tom Buchanan, and that he's a white supremacist. He is reading books about, how the white race is the supreme race, and that we should need to keep down other people. This is, at a time where we've had, there's obviously been the Civil War and all that stuff, but there's all this, this is the kind of Ku Klux Klan kind of moment of romanticizing of generating of kind of white supremacist groups, the kind of first iteration of it. And it's, it's kind of sad that in this book, Nick immediately just kind of dismisses this as kind of incoherent gibberish. It's like, unfortunately, something like you just dismiss as stupid, and, you just kind of push it aside, where it's like, now it's like, this is unfortunately, such a prevalent thing in our life. And I mean, there's also a thing of how clueless Nick is, because of, saying about like, the Klan is rioting at this time. There are lynchings. There is all this stuff happening. This is an incredibly, white American dream that is here. There isn't space for women of color. There also isn't people of color. There's also just the thing of just kind of, I noticed kind of the weaknesses of Fitzgerald. I mean, a part of it is Daisy is supposed to be kind of this insubstantial, gauzy creature who it kind of exposes how hollow Gatsby's dream is, because his dream is like, oh, I have this amazing image of what Daisy is, where she's sort of a fairly shallow person who's like, I want somebody who's rich, who's going to kind of keep me how I want to be kept. She doesn't have any feelings towards Gatsby that are going to like hold up under when Tom kind of pulls back and shows exactly what kind of man Jay Gatsby is. It's not even Jay Gatsby, not his actual thing. The other things I'm struck is like, the narrator, Nick Carraway, in this book, there's just like how adolescent he is. It's striking that at a certain point, kind of a climactic point in this novel, afterwards he goes, oh, it's my birthday today. I'm turning 30 today. And it's like, this is a guy who's in his 30s, but kind of comes across as very naif, very kind of, very undeveloped guy, a very, someone who desperately wants to believe in, Jay Gatsby, even though he knows all this stuff about him. Indeed, a part of the novel seems to be his disillusionment, him not really seeing a future, even then. You definitely feel, and how Nick treats, Jordan Baker, the woman that he potentially could have a relationship with, he treats her like crap. It's like, that this is not the guy whose opinions that you should trust. You need to kind of look through his hero worship of a guy he knows is a fake, and indeed learns exactly how much of a construction he is, how much scaffolding there is behind. And I mean, just, that also being the whole thing of the kind of the myth of the self-made man. There's a funny thing here, which really reflect that I kind of came to this time about Jay Gatsby himself, is he's kind of a bro dude. I've been kind of exposed to this. There's a booktuber named Steve Donoghue, who has a certain fascination with the kind of the bro dude section, what he calls the bro dude section of YouTube, of all these people who want to do kind of self-improvement stuff and are desperately looking for all the tips of how they can become successful, wealthy, rich, powerful men. And it's just so striking. When he shows these things, like, you can see there's a real hunger there. There's a real thing of like, they don't have that foundation and they're desperately looking for it. And at the kind of the end of this novel, when Nick meets Gats's father, he shows him a little schedule that his son had, and it's a little kind of to-do list each day of like training, of like learning, of all these little things. And it's like, wow, this is totally a little schedule that you could see a young man of today kind of like, oh, I'm going to follow this stuff because I want to become wealthy. I want to become famous. I want to become a success, without actually having kind of a reason behind it other than being a success, which kind of leads to this figure of Gatsby, who is, he's a success. He has this big mansion that's lit up like a giant bauble in the countryside, and he has these fabulous parties, but it's all hollow. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. I can see why this book might kind of peeve, kind of irritate teenagers, because there is a part of this when you come to it as a teenager, you get the sense of, oh, there's some old dude who's trying to tell me that I'm shallow for having ambition, for wanting to be famous. It's like, well, screw you. But I mean, I think there's also just sort of a kind of a sadness and a melancholy here that it's like, I don't think Fitzgerald is trying to scold us. Sometimes I think maybe the teachers who are pointing out these points are maybe more trying to scold their pupils and try and, say like, you need to eat your broccoli. you know, sort of that kind of thing. You should be humble. You shouldn't try and reach for the stars. Whereas you have kind of all these kind of gurus on the thing that's like, oh, you can read 1,000 books a year, and you can suck out all the information, and it's all about you. It's all about you, dude. It's all about you, and it's about how you can get ahead, and you can step on everybody else, and you can have beautiful women, because there's this definitely kind of a male thing here. You can have a bauble like Daisy. You can be Leo being Leonardo DiCaprio, of a certain kind of persona of being kind of the suave guy who's got a model on his arm. You can have that, and that being sold as something real when, you know, you get to a certain age, and it's like, you know, there's family, there's making kind of differences. There's selflessness. There's being part of, you know, you can go into all the platitudes, but yeah. So those are my jumbled thoughts on The Great Gatsby, a book that has been talked about by so many smarter people than me. I will leave a link down below to that In Our Times podcast episode on the BBC, which, if you get there quick enough, it'll probably still be there, where some much smarter people will talk about the book and, you know, its impact and where it came from, and Fitzgerald himself, a guy who got kind of sucked into kind of working for Hollywood for money, and just, you know, was somebody who was an alcoholic and had died very young at like 44, which, you know, to me, as someone who's 50 plus, is young. Wasn't an old dude. But yeah, I can see why this book is hung around to the point where it's out of copyright, and it could still go forward. It still has its hooks there. I know that school is really important for the lifeline of like why a book will continue to get read, because it'll get assigned. I always think that's just such a shame, though. I always think books should be something that should fall, that you should be looking and you picking them up off the ground and going, oh, what's this? And discovering it for yourself. But that said, you need, I understand you need teachers, you need people to try and impart stuff like that. I mean, I guess, you know, I don't think of myself as a teacher. I'm just think of myself as someone sharing my enthusiasms. And, thankfully, I have no desire to assign reading. So I'm assuming if you've watched this, you've read The Great Gatsby, you have some kind of feeling for it, whether it's intense annoyance. I didn't even really get into like just the beautiful language of it, which I think is something that sometimes maybe seduces people in the wrong way, and can off-put people in a way of saying like, oh, this is such a kind of an empty life, but it's being described so beautifully. It's like, it's a bauble, but it is a bauble that is in service of some deeper truths underneath it. God, more videos later.